Hi everybody, just giving it a second here for allow everybody to jump on. Okay, awesome. We are going to cover how and why meditation is the only thing that is going to get people successfully through the changes that our society is going through and will be going through. And we have just started with the changes that in some cases were long overdue. And we're actually behind schedule where our world could have been on many fronts, and many positive technologies have been repressed. And this isn't conspiracy theory. I used to belong to an inventors club, and they taught us how to get around these measures. So the biggest thing that has held us back is our own intuition, which we can only hear when we are quiet enough to clear out everybody else's beliefs, whether that is being constantly blasted through media messages or through corporate culture that takes all of our time. Now, I love high performance. I teach high performance, so I'm not bashing the desire for companies to do their best. However, the practices and tactics that many businesses and other workplaces have been employing block intuition. And intuition is the doorway to high performance because it is the doorway to how to do things differently and get to the bottom line the fastest. So if you don't know me, my name is Kara Lescu, and I founded the Eagle Institute to help organizations and leaders to use meditation to faster solve the problems in their lives and in their companies. Now, for 5 years, I have known that 2020 was going to be a watershed year where the SHIT hit the fan and massive changes were going to take place. I didn't know it was going to be a virus that was going to precipitate most of these changes. But for those of you that are here, it's important to know that the virus was just a tool that fit the energy. These massive changes were going to happen one way or the other. And the sooner we get off of what was the cause of it and get on to what's going to actually help, which is to learn and detect and follow your own intuition and learn to work in groups that are following their intuition, the happier, the more peaceful, and the more successful you will be in the organizations that you lead. Now, I was getting a bit caught up in the beginning with what's true in the media and what isn't. And honestly, I have the psychic skills to do that, but I was off track, so I stopped myself. There is no benefit in looking in the rearview mirror unless your intuition guides you to do so, either to solve a problem the way you did in the past or to recognize a pattern in yourself that is impeding your happiness and or your success. So the majority of what I'm going to cover with you today, including a sample meditation to access your intuition, is about the upcoming changes that are a part of our ascending consciousness. So that can sound airy-fairy to some people. So let me explain this in plain terms because it's not airy-fairy. Better yet, let me give you an example. So I was on Facebook yesterday and I saw a post by a very prominent and successful business coach that said that he was tired of all this and he could hardly wait for things to quote unquote get back to normal. So essentially he teaches people to be selfish as leaders, to build great cultures and processes in business to achieve growth easier. However, he says that he's doing it for altruistic purposes for the good of everybody there. However, when he was really pushed, he lashed out angrily and unknowingly at his own response. So several people called him out on his behavior and several agreed with him. And I posted that there would be no back. There was only going forward into uncharted territory. And one where the inner journey was the most important thing, whether he liked it or not. Now, several people defended both sides of this clash of belief system. He said that things were fine the way they were, even wonderful. And for many others recognizing this, he was running from his own consciousness and the inward pressure to grow. He was feeling the pressure of having to face himself and not having the usual activity levels that he used to have, that when things got tough, he could just change the channel and focus on something else. So he was facing having to work with parts of himself that were hurt, that he probably wasn't even aware of, and his karma. He wanted his old distractions back, such as always running off to a new experience. Now, there's nothing wrong with experiences. There's nothing wrong in being creative. The challenge is when we're using them to avoid doing the inner work. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful and prosperous. But the problem in this case is he just didn't want to do the inner growth work, and he didn't want to really understand himself, his motivations, or the anger that he didn't even recognize that he was displaying and unknowingly taking out on others. Now, he thought that he was really well known for being an awesome and diplomatic person, but he actually had a bad reputation for bullying people, and you didn't know at any given time which one you were going to get, the one that was caring or the bullier. And he had emotional outbursts on others that were way out of proportion for the events. Now, I've personally not been on the receiving end of this, but I have seen it in social situations. And he wasn't even aware that he was out of control with anger over not getting his own way. He thought this was an appropriate way to behave. And he was actually being very verbally abusive with staff that were in effect trying to help him. Now, I used to be exactly like him. I worked in an industry where bullying was the norm, and I could give it when pushed to the wall with exhaustion, just with the best of them. And in my earlier years, I took things out on people that were not really part of the problem because I didn't have the meditation skills or the consciousness level to see situations for what they were. I, however, like many other people like me, chose to do the inner healing work and raise consciousness and raise my consciousness to find better ways to deal with conflict and to prevent it in the first place. So all ascending consciousness or raising consciousness means that you're both aware of how you and other people are behaving because you're taking effort. You're doing techniques and practices that erase the parts of you where you're blind to things that are going on because you're unconsciously responding because of hurt or pain, or honestly, in a lot of cases, just because that's what the culture does and you just don't know any better, which was the case certainly, and all of those were true for me. So you are aware when you are being triggered and you take the time to do the healing work so it doesn't happen anymore. That's what works. When people do that, they feel better, they're more successful, and their intuition raises. In my own case, I came to the point where I realized it was not possible for my company to succeed unless we created a monopoly in our industry. And this was in my powder coating company. There were too many people that went into the industry that didn't know how to price, and some of them were even laundering money that was making the whole industry unprofitable. So I went to my business partners and told them that there wasn't anything unique enough anymore about what we did to charge a premium, and that market prices were below our profitability level, even if we produced with 100% efficiency. So I told them that we either had to buy up a bunch of companies, which would be enough for us to control pricing, or we had to sell. Now, I had a really strong financial background, but this answer did not come to me through crunching numbers. It came to me in meditation. I just finished a long yoga and meditation workshop that was designed to increase your third eye, which is your neutral mind, the neutral part of your intuition. And I just knew that if I ran the numbers, there was no way I could be profitable no matter what we did. And I also knew that the only way to be profitable in this industry was to buy up approximately 75% of the powder coating companies in Ontario. I also knew it would work, but it would be a very challenging 3 years of taking our company to the brink of bankruptcy several times before we got to solid profitability. And I knew all of this in about 30 seconds. So the reason this came to me was that I was healing my own consciousness, and I was actively developing my intuition and coming from a place of serving, not just myself, but everybody this would affect. My staff at my 2 factories, the other 4 shareholders, their families, the families of my staff, and all the other people that were currently invested in our business because we had other investors, plus our small community where many other small businesses were tied to us in our financial success due to the close-knit and small size of the manufacturing community. So this understanding, this intuitive gift was meant to help me, but not just me, and what I needed to do in my life, which was at a crossroads, and also to help serve all of these other people. Since I was not the majority shareholder, it wasn't my decision to make, but it was my responsibility to do the numbers and see if I was right, and I was, so that our ownership group could make an informed decision as to the next best steps strategically for the business. So after I presented the two options and they verified the numbers, the ownership group decided to sell the company to someone that strategically needed our processes for their own operations, which solved several problems that serve both us and a wider community. First of all, most staff would stay on after the sale and they would have stability. Capacity would be taken out of the market, which would help other businesses that were staying in the market. And I know this is a minor improvement, but every little bit helps. We would be able to pay off the debts of the companies, and the shareholders would get more now than they would likely get in the future as prices continue to drop. So when you actively work to raise your consciousness, you can access information that other people do not see, and that is your intuition. Really, all information is available to all people at all times, but we aren't tuned into it. We have the internet as a fabulous model of intuition. It has lots of information, but the issue is tuning into the right stuff. And the same is true for your intuition. All the information is there. You just have to learn how to tune into it. So what does intuition have to do with reinvention of work? Well, as it turns out, a lot. Your intuition, if it is developed, knows which course of action it needs to be successful. And you don't have to do what most people do now, which is look for a needle in a haystack. So think of your intuition like a giant magnet that sucks the needle out so you can find it easily with very little disruption to the hay. So most people today and whole industries and companies are trying to sort the haystack to find the needle. And the problem is that the hay is being thrown around the barn by a big windstorm, meaning that things are constantly changing. So what would you rather do? Continuously go through the hay that's constantly moving, or get the giant magnet to get the needle in about 2 seconds? Well, we've seen massive changes in the workplace and very different changes depending on what kind of work you do. Now, the purpose of these changes at their fundamental part is to reevaluate not only how we work and the role of work in earning money in everybody's lives, but also how we get things done in a personal way and as a society. How we look after our kids. How much time do we work? How much do we pollute driving? And how much time do we waste going to and from work? This also includes food and services and sleep, relationships, exercise. All of this is related to the future of work. And at the same time, we have technology taking off in unprecedented ways. And the ease of doing things with technology, when it works, is astounding. I made one of the best videos I've ever made this week from customized stock footage, a short clip with a voiceover and some text. It was one of the highest quality videos I've ever produced, and it took me about 20 minutes to make, including picking the clips. My first video, which I would even be embarrassed to show you, took about 12 hours to make. It didn't have any of the animation that this one, and it looked homemade. And my first video also cost about $3,000, and the most recent one was free. So if things are becoming free and people can do things faster and easier and of higher quality, what does that mean for work? Well, this is really an answer you can only ask and get an accurate answer to personally. Each person has to discover it on their own. It's not for me to tell you. This will be a time of experiments and of individual answers, and that is one of the biggest changes that we're making right now. There will be some industries or types of work where hands-on will be extremely important, and the high touch will be the most important thing. And there will be other industries where there will barely be humans. The humans will be all coders and some overseers, and maybe even end up being open source. The nature of money and trade will change, and work will stop being for survival like it is now to be about growth and about joy, loving it, thriving in your day just because you get to get up and do something. So one thing that I know both from studying high performance science and how the brain and nervous system and stress responses work, our work days, and I put work in quotes, will be shorter, and the focus will come back in our lives in general to families, relationships, and communities, as well as time for personal growth and really knowing and understanding yourself. Now, right now, this is something that can be painful for many people. And many people were able to avoid the pain of family and personal pain because such a high percentage of their time, focus, and energy went into work. whether that was in a professional capacity or domestic duties. And very few people, unless they schedule it, had the time to just be. And honestly, that hasn't been valued. Yet that's where all the new ideas and insight and innovation come from. And I've done this exercise with so many people. I love it. I think it's awesome. If you want to do an interesting exercise, take out a journal or a piece of paper or your note section of your phone and write down at least 5 breakthrough ideas. And I mean something that fundamentally changed the way you accomplish something. Not just like, oh yeah, that would be better if I did it that way. No, something that made a radical change or difference. And then put down then put down what the outcome was of that and where you were when you were doing it. Now, I have yet to do this with anybody that came back to me and said that they had their best breakthrough ideas when they were exhausted at work or scurrying between meetings working 60 hours a day. When people tell me this is what I hear. I was sick and laying in bed and it just came to me. I had just finished a workout and I was waiting for the sauna at the gym. I was cutting the grass and I wasn't using my iPod because the battery was dead. My phone died in an airport and I couldn't charge it for the whole flight. So if your best innovative answers come from your intuition and accessing your intuition is a fluke when you accidentally slow down or get forced into it, then what happens to most people? Well, they rarely get these insights. And worse, they forget as soon as they get busy again, or they don't act on them because they're too caught up for searching for the needle in the haystack rather than using the big magnet. So a lot of people clap back at me at using the magnet as cheating, or that I would get in trouble at work if I did that, or they would just give me more work to do. I would lose my job. I have heard so many excuses that honestly, I can't even count them all anymore. But underlying all of them is the notion that your value is tied to your time. Your value is your contribution. And the businesses and the people and the organizations that are going to make it are the ones that put that first and act on that. We have all different kinds of people in industries on this live video, whether they're tech or startups or HR, social workers, and a whole bunch more. And I've helped clients in all of these industries with various issues relating to working less and getting higher performance. And I've also worked with elite athletes and varsity athletes in a university and high school kids that were on Div 1 scholarship track. And what they all have in common is that in order to get high performance, you have to do things differently. And when they do that, they work less. Then they have to reinvent themselves because their identities were so tied up in how much they work, and they didn't know how to relate to the world outside of a work context. Now, this seems kind of weird, but this is true for many people. So now people have to rediscover who they are outside of work. For some people, this might be for the first time, and it can be very scary. And for some, this will happen sooner rather than later. But once people get in touch with this, they start to get happy because their lives are in balance and they flow rather than struggle. So in order for work to be reinvented in a way that's healthy for everybody, including you, you have to be willing to let things go, even things that you maybe really kind of liked or love. And I have yet to train anybody on using their intuition that didn't ultimately end up in a much better place or with multiple of their goals achieved in less time. I can't say that I was overly excited when I came to the conclusion in my business that the answer was to sell, because I put so much time and energy into it. But I did know that I would be better off, and so would everybody else. So let me share with you another example. I was working with a mortgage broker who was doing quite well in her business. It was growing and she needed help to delegate. And she was getting exhausted because she was working 50 plus hours a week and she had a parent that needed full-time care that she was responsible for. So all in all, much more than 50 hours a week. She wanted to develop her intuition to find ways to make more money so that she could delegate more and work less while still growing her business. Now, the first thing that I worked with her on was her relationship to work and money. And to get in touch with that, I taught her intuition development skills. And boy, was she ever shocked at what came up when she started to get in touch with her intuition. First of all, she realized most of her clients were mostly trouble and the least payback for her time that she could have in the industry. Now, intellectually, she was sort of aware of this, and she'd been aware of this for many years, but she failed to make the connection between that and the fact that she was exhausted. So when I tell people this story, they tell me that's just logic, not intuition. But people forget that everybody has blind spots, and it might be obvious to you, but not to them. You have places in your life right now where you're unaware of that you're doing it the hard way. Everybody does, including me. I'm continually discovering new ones. So back to her story. Intuitively, she was shown that in her childhood, when she got things done quickly, she was given more work to do. And when she took a long time to do things, she actually got rewarded. So if she was supposed to have her homework done in 2 hours and it took her 2.5 hours, she would get a reward. If she got it done in an hour and a half, she was given more work to do. So she was also highly criticized if she finished something early. And it didn't matter if that was cleaning up her room or practicing for music or the example that I just gave, homework. So what do you think happened when she went to work? She found the hard way to do things, the way that took longer, because that was her training. Now, people sometimes think this example is ridiculous, but it is so prevalent. I was very good at working quickly at school, and I think I was actually I know I was naturally meditating at a young age, and certainly very psychic and intuitive at a young age. And I was always told to slow down, be more careful, use up all the time, make sure I did a better job. And I most certainly did not get perfect marks, but the few times that I took their advice, my marks actually dropped. I was changing my original and correct answers. So thank goodness I had the presence of mind to mostly go with my intuitive answers. So which is more valuable? Struggling through something just because, or taking the time to use your intuition and find the shortcuts? So this concept is deeply ingrained in our society. And for many people, it will take some healing work to erase this tendency. But this is the path to reinvention. Reinvention in ways that work happier, that we feel happier, that we're healthier, and we do things fundamentally different than what society broadly accepts as okay or even valuable today. So returning to our example, she was unable to accept the ways that were right in front of her to make more money in less time and effort because of a pattern that she wasn't aware of that was running in her consciousness. So I taught her meditation techniques to erase that pattern. And in this case, the one that you had to work long hours in order to be worthy of a reward. So she tried all kinds of things in terms of delegating, and she kept sabotaging it and being a perfectionist and taking it back until she used the intuitive skills that I gave her and erased this childhood pattern. And as soon as she did that, she started getting new clients that were less work and more money within a few days. Then a few weeks later, she booked a long weekend and she was off and running. 4 weeks later, she was making more money than she ever had, and she'd cut her working time in half. She started to take 3-day weekends every week, and she stopped taking her laptop to her cottage. She booked vacations every quarter, and she didn't do any work at all while on vacation. Before she started to erase the pattern in her consciousness with intuition development, she hadn't taken a vacation in 5 years. She didn't feel like she could afford the time, her words. So what does this have to do with intuition? Number one, you cannot hear your intuition if your mind is crowded. You hear your intuition when you quiet your mind and when you actively develop it. Number two, your intuition knows how to find the needle in the haystack. It knows the fastest path, which sometimes might be really not obvious. So I'm going to give you another quick example here because it's really important, because otherwise you might not trust your intuition. So I was sitting at work one day, and it was a Saturday because our showroom was open on Saturdays. And I was thinking about what I needed to do with a certain job and a certain role in our company. We were growing, and I knew I needed to hire somebody new for something we hadn't really done before. And I had this overwhelming urge to go to a new gym that I hadn't been to before. I'd driven by it. It wasn't too far from where I lived. So I went there and I actually really loved it and realized that this was going to solve some problems for me in terms of being able to go to work on time. And I needed different trainers than I was currently getting because my fitness level had improved so much. So I thought, okay, this is cool. This doesn't have anything to do with my business problem, but it is solving something else I need. Well, lo and behold, on my first day, when I go to that gym, I met somebody that was in the kind of industry where I needed to hire someone. And that led it to contacts and ultimately resulted in hiring the person I wanted. So my intuition to go to this gym had to do with me hiring just as much as it had to satisfy my needs for fitness. So your intuition can work like that. It is not always obvious when you feel that impulse to do something, or sometimes you may even see something, or maybe even hear a voice in your head. It may even sound like your own voice, and you need to learn to listen to those things. So your intuition is always beaming information at you, but it has to get through to you. And many people have a lot of muck in the way. It's like dropping your phone in the mud and not cleaning it and then trying to read your text messages. You might not even know that they're there, and you sure can't read them effectively. So this is the first step for everybody in accessing their intuition. You have to clear your mind and your beliefs that you aren't aware of. And once you do that, you can not only hear, but you'll gain the confidence to act on what your intuition is telling you. Now, in a world that's highly dynamic and is changing all the time, this can change a lot. And it's important to note with intuition that it can be, it can be one way today, and then data changes, the circumstances changes, and you may need to adapt. But your intuition will guide you on that so that you don't get stuck doing something where it may have been the right thing last week and you need to change now. Now, the fourth thing you really need to work on with intuition is your unconscious beliefs. And incidentally, all stress is karmic in nature, and karma means cause and effect. So in the case that I just talked about, the mortgage broker, she was very stressed out. And her karma was that she learned that she had to work really hard, and if she didn't spend extra time at it, she was unworthy and needed to be criticized. And that's a karmic pattern. So that belief and all beliefs get stored in our aura as data. And every time a situation arises on a topic, that program gets played. So in this case, emotional pain and sadness for being criticized for working too quickly and not doing the job, at the high level that her mother had expected. So do you see how this happens? So in order to get past these patterns and hear your intuition, and in her case, the change that she needed to make was the focus in her business to higher net worth clients. So she had to erase the pattern that was created in her childhood in order to do that. And it was something she wasn't even aware of until she started to work on her intuition. Now, my fifth point is you don't have to know all of the unconscious patterns and beliefs to clear your intuitive senses. You just clean them up with intuitive clearing skills and they go away. Some of them you might recognize what they are, and others of them just leave and you start making decisions differently and behaving differently. And you find yourself making different decisions. Like in the mortgage broker's case, when she'd done enough intuitive cleaning and she listened to her intuitive guidance she was getting, it only took a few weeks for her life to be vastly different and happier on many accounts. So we are going to practice one technique right now to improve your intuitive information. Now, this technique is appropriate for anyone to do, but it may be difficult if you can't relax and focus for a maximum of 15 minutes. If you can't, I suggest you actually look for one of my other meditations on this channel. I recommend one of the pranayama ones, and do that until you can do it easily, and then come back and do this one. But you're welcome to stay if you want. So I'm going to lead you in this meditation. It will strengthen your positive mind. It will also help you to access your your intuition for new inspired ideas. So to prepare yourself for your meditation, I recommend you sit in a chair with a hard back and bottom. You want to have your spine straight and at 90 degrees to your legs. You want to have your feet flat on the floor. Your legs will not be crossed and your head is in line with your body. So some people like to lean to one side or maybe forward a bit. That makes it harder to focus and harder to listen to your intuition. If you're short, you don't want to have your legs dangling because that'll put a lot of pressure on your low back and it'll make it harder to relax. So put something under your feet. If you're really tall, not having your legs completely on the chair also makes it difficult to sit up straight. So fold up a blanket or something kind of hard. Make the chair a little bit higher so your knees and your hips are at 90 degrees. So take time to do this right now before you continue with the meditation. Also, your back will not be touching the back of the chair or you'll be leaning back too far. So this is me with my back against the chair. This is me sitting up straight. Now, start with when you put your body in a neutral position, it stops negative thoughts, it calms your nervous system down, and honestly, people just feel happier. So I've done this with hundreds of people and they all calm down when their spine is straight. And that when you're that stops or reduces the fight or flight response in the body and makes it easier for you to access the creative parts of your mind. So that really is stopping the stress response. So we're going to do 3 breathing techniques in a row here, and then we're going to go straight into some techniques that will help you improve your intuition. So you're going to find your lowest ribs, and you're going to put your hands on them. Now, I recommend that you put them on the front to start. Your hands are going to be like this. You don't want to have one in front of the other. You want to have, or your fingers interlaced. You want to have even pressure between both hands, and you want to have your hands on your ribs. So partly on your ribs and partly below. Position number 2 is that you're going to put your hands in the back of your hand against your back. And then the third one is going to be your hands on your side ribs, either with your thumb and index finger on your ribs or your hands flat against your body like that. So we're gonna do 3 different hand positions for your breathing. So we're gonna spend 3 minutes in each position, which will take a total of about 9 minutes. So this really quiets your mind. Sitting straight and calming your breath when I work with people that are stressed, they usually find their mood improves by about 50% in actually even less than the 9 minutes we're going to do. So begin with your hands on your front of your body. And you can count your breaths to help you focus. So inhale 1 and exhale 1. Just allow yourself to relax here. And continue on your own, and I will come back and tell you when to change your hands to the new position. Excellent work. If you're thinking or something, just bring your focus back to your breathing. This should feel easy and pleasant. If you start thinking, just let the thought trail off and return your focus to your breathing. Having your hands on your body bypasses your thinking brain and deepens your breath, which calms the mind, which will allow you greater access to your intuition and your creativity. Excellent work. And then getting ready to switch the hands to the back. At the end of your next exhale, moving your hands to the back. If your shoulders are really tight, you can do one at a time, and they will actually be fairly low down your back, about waist level. If your shoulders are tight, you can use the back of your hand. If your shoulders are fairly flexible, you can use the palm of your hand. You will feel more if you use the palm. And don't be alarmed if you don't feel a lot of movement from breathing. Most people don't the first time. But the technique is still working. Excellent work. Again, noticing breathing in the lower lungs. And if you're doing one hand at a time on the lower back ribs, then switch hands. And as you're doing this, see yourself inhaling calm and exhaling all negative thoughts and emotions. Excellent work. You should feel starting to feel a sense of ease with this. Now getting ready to switch your hands to the sides. If they're really getting tired, you can put them down. But I do recommend that you do the side ribs if it's not putting strain on you. So finding your side waist and your lower rib and putting your hands on the lowest ribs and allowing your shoulders to relax as you do that. And with each exhalation breath, letting negative thoughts go, letting negative emotions go, perhaps any irritation, impatience, frustration, just let it go. And as you inhale, inhaling peace and calm and a sense that all is well and right in your world. And try to get a sense of the sideways movement in your lower lungs as you inhale and exhale. This floods your body with both oxygen and positive hormones for well-being. Excellent work. Okay, if you can continue with your hands on your side ribs if your arms are relaxed. If they're not, you can allow them to come and sit on your lap or on the side of the chair, whatever feels most relaxed. But continue to focus on this sideways expansion of your lungs. It will help you to focus and stay calm, which, as we said, is the doorway to your intuition. Now, in this calm state, imagine that you have a giant balloon in front of you, like one of those hot air balloons that you see in the summer. And it has an enormous basket on the bottom. And put every problem you think you have into this balloon, especially ones you want answers to. And be honestly willing to give them away. It's in releasing them that you can have new insights and creative solutions. So problems and solutions are on a different frequency. You have to let go of problems to receive the inspiration to new and innovative solutions. I did a technique similar to this one, and I ended up starting a new business, one that I had never dreamed of in the past, which is teaching meditation, which is what I do now. So, in this relaxed state, imagine that you are really happy with your life. You don't have to know what you're doing, but you do have to feel the feeling of being really happy. Now imagine you wake up in the morning enthusiastic with your day and eager to get out of bed, feeling refreshed. Get that feeling. And now watch what happens next. What do you feel inspired to do? What images do you see? So you might see one scene, you might see several different scenes, you might hear something, you might just know something. The most important thing is that you stay happy and that you feel enthusiastic. Now ask your higher self, the part of you that gets inspired and knows your best path, to show you what the first step is in accomplishing that. Now, do not discount anything you see or hear or even know, especially if you're feeling relaxed and happy. You might see something that's symbolic. You might see something that's an actual scene. Maybe you're doing something on your own or with other people, or something that you hear or you just know. This is how your intuition works. And ask your higher self, the part of you that is greater than just what's in your human body, to guide you to the feelings that you need to manifest this, as well as to help you remember the parts that are important from this after the meditation is done. And also ask for the resources that you need to accomplish this. And this could be anything from contacts to maybe a class or other learning to money. If it's meant to be yours and you stay relaxed, you will receive it. Now imagine that any images that you see or anything that you heard or are hearing or that you know is infused with golden light, which makes it a very high frequency. You can think of it like your gold-winning ideas. And you might have more than one. Now imagine that there's a giant golden ball of light above your head that is bigger than your body. And see that ball coming down so that you are centered in the middle of this ball of golden light. Now, golden light is highly positive, and it attracts to you everything you need for these new inspired ideas to be real. It also keeps you in a very positive mental and emotional state. And then let that go and return your focus back to your breathing. And then slowly return your focus back to the room. Now you may need to rub your hands together or rub your body a little bit to bring your focus back. Open and close your hands a few times. So I hope you have some wonderful new ideas and inspiration. And remember, a relaxed state is the doorway to your intuition. The technique we did today is a very simple and beginner level technique for using, well, not quite beginner, maybe beginner plus level of technique for accessing your intuition. Remember to stay positive and start to allow these ideas to take form in the real world. The longer you can be relaxed and not get stressed or worried, how is this going to happen, and not going to strain and struggle, the faster that things will manifest for you. Now, this journey, it is going to be uncertain for many people, but it is actually the best time for amazing new ideas to be born. And I know so many people that have started amazing new projects that are a result of something that seemed like an unpleasant circumstance or an ending. And many people are being forced into this right now, whether they want it or not. And other people have to consciously make the decision to make changes to make themselves happier. So regardless of which one, or maybe even a combination of both, this is for you, you can get inspired very easily and let your intuition guide you to your next best steps. So if you want to learn more of these techniques that are more advanced, I can only do that on an individual basis. I'll make sure that you're doing the techniques that will move you forward, that are appropriate to your individual work on intuition development, which is closely connected to your personal karma. So some of the techniques are very similar to the ones that we did here today, and some of them are vastly different. So please let me know what came up as a result of this meditation, whether you comment below or you email me and give me an update. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We post videos here regularly that improve your life with tools for meditation and self-healing, especially that applies to the workplace.